Everything you are, everything you've done, has come to this. I need you to trust me. One last time.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I just wanted to make a quick video here for the new subscribers. If you're coming in and you're watching this Harbor episode, you're like, what is this? Thanks for tuning in. It's a show we do about 3 times a month, and we try to do stuff kind of like Criterion, artsy stuff, like Paris, Texas, or like 8.5 or Solaris. So if you like those kinds of movies, we have an entire backlog. We try to do that stuff. So go check those out if you're interested. We just do hour-long conversations about them. And normally we stick to those kinds of movies, but occasionally we do newer movies, like we did the Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy, and now we're doing the Mission Impossible episode. Because I still do video essays, but those take way longer. So you're going to see more of this in your inbox if you're subscribed. But if you're here for the video essays, we have a ton others that I've done in the last year. So check those out. Stick with us and check out this episode and see if it's for you. I'm not going to have clips in this episode normally like I do for every other episode because Paramount's been giving me hell for copyright. So I'm just like, screw it. Fun little Mission Impossible episode. And then we'll be back next week for our summer series. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Harbor. I'm the Kino Cowboy here with Scott Keith. Like usual, we decided before we enter the summer series this year that we're gonna do a little roundup of the entire Mission Impossible franchise, and by that I mean the movies, not the show. But
no, we were reviewing every episode of both series, the 60s one, and wasn't there like a reboot in the 80s?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I just looked up some clips. I'm like, this is very different. The fact that we got to Tom Cruise hanging off planes from whatever 60s bullcrap this is pretty gnarly. You know.
Yeah, we're going to talk about why certain ones in the franchise might be our favorite, what we like about the escalation of the franchise, and then
what we don't like or what I don't like.
Sure, yeah. And then we'll get into
because I think we do. I mean, you and I definitely have overlapping opinions, but I think we have some differing opinions on which ones we prefer and why we prefer that. For sure.
I mean, except for the second one, I really just like them all, you know.
I enjoy all of them, including the second one, but for different reasons. That's because I'm okay with the kind of meta-narrative camp of like John Woo just like going crazy in Hollywood and just like accepting it as like they unleashed this Hong Kong director in Hollywood not knowing what they had wrought. Like they're just like, all right, fine. I almost imagine like halfway through the production, just let him, dude. Just let him John Woo it. It's fine. We already spent our money. It's Tom Cruise.
Well, earlier today I saw some information that Clearwater, Florida, which is where I got engaged, is like actually one of the biggest hotspots of Scientology in the world. And that's true. So I saw that they had a station there, so I called it, and I asked them when they picked up what they thought of the new Mission Impossible movie, and they kept insisting that I had the wrong number. I was like, I don't know if I do, but okay.
I wonder. I do wonder because I do want to address that actually, unironically, and I think I mentioned this on a previous episode recently of, you know, separating the art from the artist and how weird that is in the case of Tom Cruise, because like, I don't know, it's his religion. I think it's essentially a cult. And I think he's like a de facto, he's like the Grand Moff of Scientology, you know, he's not like the emperor, but like he's up there. He might be the Vader or like the Count Dooku of Scientology. Because the man's a robot. The man's just odd. It's been going viral recently of how he eats popcorn, and it's like, I don't know if you've seen it, but he's eating popcorn like he's being filmed in a movie eating popcorn.
Yeah.
Like he's an alien who has to perform eating popcorn.
He's eating it like the Cookie Monster eats cookies. It's not real.
It's really thing. And here's the thing, you know, that guy like those four kernels of popcorns you see in a short form video, or that's the only carbs he has all week.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Because I mean, he makes it. We'll get to the final reckoning, but he makes a point of going shirtless in his 60s to be
Yeah.
just to literally to flex, literally to be like, hey kids, this is how you do it. Because like I don't know, I guess TRT wasn't as advanced in '96 when it came out, so he was actually like a normal athletic build and not like weird Hollywood Tom Cruise build. He's so boyish, you know. Um,
Well,
but it is that thing. I will say, we'll get the review of the latest one later at the end of this. But I will say, going in, I said if this is good enough, I will convert to Scientology. And I'm not a Scientologist. So
the uh the lady on the phone, she didn't sound overly stern. I think she was genuinely just confused and befuddled by my.
she probably like didn't get the connection. But here's the thing. I also hear like it's kind of like with your Angel Studios movies, like what King of Kings and Sound of Freedom, and more recently The Last Rodeo, which I didn't realize had come out was an Angel Studios thing, where they put the QR code at the end and they're like, if you want to get to heaven, buy another ticket to this movie for someone else, which is a great marketing strategy.
Oh my
Like, hey,
God.
no, that's what it is. It's like, hey, do you want to go to hell? No, scan this QR code, motherfucker. Like that's what it's like negging, with eternal punishment. But it's sort of that like I've read that like it's your duty to support Tom Cruise in his endeavors.
Yeah, because the video I saw was at a AMC in Clearwater and it was packed out.
That's what it is. That's what it
Yeah.
is. That the one where he was visiting the employees?
No, it was just a random theater employee filming their
I mean,
lobby.
hey, listen, it's been packed out. It's I think it's had the biggest opening of all of them.
Yeah.
Um, it's insane that this latest one, it's one of the most expensive production budgets ever made. It's like 400 million or something. I've been making the joke. How much of that is the insurance costs?
Yeah.
Because those premiums have to be insane. No wonder they got to get so many donations in the church, just to fund this goddamn movie. Um, and essentially, it's Tom Cruise fighting a science god, which the man doesn't like psychiatry, so or maybe even Western medicine. I don't know.
There's also been that press junket clip that went viral of some lady asking him like, "What are you doing for Father's Day? How's that gonna be?" And he was just like a machine, like not really answering. It's like really weird.
So I'm gonna just steal an anecdote from another podcast that I don't even remember what it is. It was
Yeah.
convenient to talk about it. So and this may be BS, but this is what they said. They said that these entertainers like met Tom Cruise at something and they offhandedly invited him to a Super Bowl party, fully not expecting him to show up. And then he does, and he shows up at the door, and he has a football that he like just bought and unwrapped from the store. It's almost like a movie, like, oh, this is something that humans do. They bring a football to the Super Bowl party, and he's like kind of tossing it around, acting weird. And then they're all talking about something, and like their marriages or something. And he's trying to be like a bro, and he's like, yeah, you know what the best part of marriage is? Fucking your wife, right? Having sex with your wife, right? Like he thinks that's like this is how guys talk, like in movies, dude. You know, he even
That's
says in whenever
so.
you watch this movie a day, and I'm like, you don't have time to watch a movie a day. Like, I don't know what you're doing, you know. Maybe during certain like off season, but like, what do you? I don't know. Maybe when you're just like mainlining your adrenochrome,
Maybe,
whatever,
yeah. I mean, this
you're
guy,
getting your virgin blood transfusions. You watch a movie.
he is the movies. Greg Turkington be damned. Tom
No,
Cruise is Mr. Movies.
this we'll get to it. The final reckoning, I think, is he's seeing the rise of large language models, and he's like, this is going to destroy entertainment unless I alone can save it. Like, that's what it is. He's like, we can't have deep fake movies. People can't deep fake me and Taylor Swift having sex. That's not the movies. I am the movies. I must save the world.
That's the
I
best
am.
part about the final reckoning is that he's telling us he's the only person that can save the world, and we believe him because he's Ethan Hunt.
Well, it really is that is kind of the amazing though. As much as we make fun of him, like nobody else can play Ethan Hunt. If they do, now this movie's looking like. Here's the thing: even with the insane production budget, I think. But there was a Collider article I read, which take it with a grain of salt. It's a Collider article talking about like how this boosts the franchise and even like Paramount Plus subscriptions and all this other stuff of how it's like in video on demand. Like apparently the original Mission Impossible still rakes in like 10 million a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's the idea of like even if this movie is because like the general rule is 2.5 times your budget, so this thing has to make over $1 billion to start making a profit, which is it's a lot of money. But which again God, I wonder what his salary was on this, but also he has to have a percentage of the gross. Like, there's no way he's just taking a normal salary. But
Well, yeah,
it,
he's a producer on
yeah, he is a
the later
producer
ones.
too. Yeah, like an executive producer.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Like it says executive producer Tom Cruise, no other names, and then it says producers Christopher McQuarrie and other people. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, he's
So
putting
no,
them.
he's in charge of it, which I wonder what his working relationship is with Christopher McQuarrie. Because one of the interesting things, and arguably one of the things I criticize about this is like I like Christopher McQuarrie's movies. He did bring a cohesive vision to the second half of this franchise, but I also like the sort of anthology feel you get from the first four movies of the eight of having different directors being able to put their own spins on this franchise. You know,
I I feel like 5 and 6 are still very much their own adventures. Like, yeah, Ilsa's in them, but like I just feel like they can still stand alone as like crazy different entries to me.
they do because I saw Fallout before I saw Rogue Nation and I was fine.
Like,
I did.
yeah, you if you don't know who Lane is, you'll be all right, I
That was
think.
yeah, that was the only thing. But like, I got the idea of like, okay, he's a terrorist leader. Like I got it. You know,
Yeah.
um, and other than that, like I didn't really need to know. Like I figured out he and Ilsa had a history. One of my biggest criticisms of this franchise are like how women are like just like plot points in relation to Ethan Hunt in some ways. Not Ilsa so much. She's probably one of the best characters, probably the best character outside of Ethan, honestly.
Yeah.
And our boy Luther probably, but
Yeah, this is a
yeah,
Luther
shout out to
appreciation
Luther and Biggie,
episode.
of course. But the as far as like complexity, but yeah, there's a lot of it's not full on James Bond, like he is a different Bond girl every time.
Yeah, I do appreciate the difference. And I mean, I like Skyfall and I like some James Bond movies, but I mean, I kind of prefer Ethan Hunt in a way as like
Okay.
just that's my kind of bag.
Well,
Just something.
the difference is that Ethan Hunt, as amazing as he is, and he does get flanderized in the later movies to become like almost superheroic, like he he is more of an everyman, and you feel that, and you get that with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is interesting because I mean, just as an actor, because like he's a leading man with everyman appeal, and that is a delicate balance,
Yeah.
to do. Because like I don't feel like I could be James Bond, but I watch, especially like Mission Impossible 1. It's like, oh, this could be like any sort of like FBI agent or like government agent, who's like in over his head. He doesn't feel like a superhero in that way.
Sure.
Um, until he's like on the Burj Khalifa. Like that's where it jumps.
We both in our own time rewatched the entire franchise before the last one. But you had never seen the first one until this rewatch.
I had never seen the first two. I had
Okay.
somehow seen three through the rest of them. Three
Sure.
was the first one I watched when that was new. And
That's most
interestingly enough,
people's
I
entry
remember
point,
not
I'd say.
loving it when I was like a teenager or whatever. But also, I don't know. I think it just wasn't for me at the time. I still have my criticisms of that movie, but
Yeah. Well, I was because when you ranked them, you put one towards the top, which I found interesting, and it was fresh for you. So I'd like to hear what made that one so interesting to you.
I think it's interesting because we've been watching Brian De Palma and talking about Brian De Palma, and so part of that's just seeing it as a larger part of his filmography. I enjoy how '90s it is, and I enjoy how '90s it is. It does feel like this interesting espionage of like, so it's all. I mean, this whole movie's all like all the half the villains are like related to the IMF in some way. It's like the deep state, it's like Trump wrote these and he's like, and I alone can fix it, like Ethan Hunt. And then so you had this sort of like post Cold War 90s, but pre 9/11, because 9/11 changed these movies. Because the jump, well, I was explaining that to some younger people I know. The jump from 2 to 3, I was like, there was 2, and then 9/11 happened. And that completely changed like action movies and like espionage forever. And the real world.
Bush era action movies always look so fucking yellow too.
Oh, dude, no, that's one of my biggest problems in that movie. The color grading and
Yeah.
the high contrast in the colors is so weird. It looks very, yeah, yellow. It's just that's the word to say. Like
Yeah.
everybody looks like they've been, and also in that era, the like fake tans and sun like tanning beds were real popular. Maybe that has something to do with it. They're like, we need to make all of our pasty theater nerds look like they've been in tanning beds the whole time. I don't know, something like that. It does have that problem. It's grainy, although that's intentional. There's something about that, like I don't, and maybe this is probably me reading way too much into it, but this sort of like looking inward, like okay, well, now that America's the only superpower, like where are our enemies? Is it from within? Is it from with our own borders or our own allies? I appreciate the simplicity of it. I think the final set piece is, I mean, it's classic. The whole train helicopter sequence. Sure. I mean, it's classic. The ridiculous shot of him being like blown forward by an explosion, action movie trope, but he's somehow not burned. And it blows him forward with enough force to catch up with a bullet train that he's like, like it's stupid, but like somehow looks good, even though it's like not real. Like, I think it's ballsy to cast Emilio Estevez and immediately kill him off, and which is intelligent because it also kills John Voight off. Because if it just killed one of them off, I'd be like, well, they're coming back. But if it kills both of them off, I'm like, is this movie ballsy enough to kill off both of these like big ticket actors, in the first whatever portion of it? And yeah. I mean, I wasn't, and this is gonna be spoilers for the whole franchise, of course. Like, I wasn't that surprised when John Voight came back and was the villain. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Sure. And I wasn't that surprised when like the one like European love interest or whatever he had in that, or like the female agent was like a double agent or whatever. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I never really trusted her to begin with. I haven't watched the later movies. I knew Luther was cool. Luther was going to pull through. You had Leon, the professional, who didn't show up any. And I'm like, so he's going to be like the greasy, like Euro trash hacker who betrays him, and that was true. But there's something about it. There's also something about just like going back and watching like the break into the CIA sequence, which is all very well done, has been parodied a million times. Shrek 2, what like just seeing it like in its original context, be like, no, this is legitimately a great like tense sequence.
Yeah.
And also like how much of that sequence relies on like scat humor, because they basically do a laxative gag with the guy who ends up, spoilers, showing up in the final reckoning. And like the final, that guy met his final reckoning in that movie when he drank that cup of coffee. That's what happened. Like the party trick where you put eye drops in the guy's coffee to make him sick. I've never done that, but the fact that that's a part of it, I don't know. I just enjoyed it. And a thing in my ranking, which we can talk about rankings anytime. Yeah. I will put an asterisk by it by recency bias. I will just say that. Like there's pure recency bias on that because that's one I watched more recently. But I do appreciate the simplicity of that and the style of that and the 90s-ness of it.
Yes. And I totally get that. It's just, for me, it's like all of the ones that come after, other than the second one, just happen to be just a little bit more advanced, envelope pushing with their set pieces. Just, there's more for me to dig in on. Although arguably, I could say it's better than the third one. But there's this rawness to some of the third one that you don't get in some of the later ones, with the emotion between him and his wife, and like the threat of his wife being killed in front of him is the one of the coolest cold openings to me for a blockbuster.
It is a terrific cold opening. Here's my, and this is personal bias. In any movie, if you put like a spouse, which is typically a woman, or a child in danger, and you do not properly develop that character, That is a writing pet peeve for me. I think his wife, whose name I can't remember, is better developed
Julia.
in half the screen time she
Oh
gets in
wait,
Fallout. You know,
yeah, it's
I
Julia.
like one of my more controversial movie opinions is I do not like Grave of the Fireflies because too much of that movie's like pathos is channeled through like a young underdeveloped child starving, and I understand there's like greater historical going ons happening, but I it strikes me as lazy writing. I can see the writer is the problem. Anytime I can see the writer being like, such as JJ being like, I'm going to insert this to make him more relatable. Now, great casting. That woman, you know, she's a great act, like does great in that role. She looks the role. She has this like perfect girl next door. I would marry her look, like for sure.
Yeah,
Totally my type, just irrespective of the movie. But um, there's something about that, like she doesn't feel like a character to me, and it's called fridging, you know. And even though she doesn't actually die in that, where like you kill off like a male character's love interest, you know, just to serve as motivation for them. And I'm not even talking about it in some like feminist way, although there's that argument to be made. I'm just saying purely as like a trope. I find it boring. And even though the cold open's good, most of the villains in this franchise aren't super in depth, but Philip Seymour Hoffman crushes. Philip Seymour Hoffman makes every movie better. Like he's just one of those guys. He's one of my favorite actors. I love him. I think he's great. But there is also this like noticeable like post 9/11 shift where like JJ's like, I have to make it more serious because now we're at global war, you know. But that's also just the zeitgeist.
that's fine. I think we get it across the point enough. He's drawn back in by this mission because it's an old colleague in danger. Okay, she's a nurse at the ER. She doesn't know enough about what's going on and she's confused. And they do have some moments together. We see their romance together, so I think it's enough to set that up as him as a workaholic. He's trying to fight getting back in, but he
Yeah.
does.
But I know. And also it is sort of like how dumb is this woman for thinking he works for the DOT? Like, I don't know. Maybe.
Well,
You think
he goes on a
You
2 day
think Pete
trip
Buttigieg goes
the
on
one time, and then the second time she's immediately like, okay, something's going on. I want to know
something's
what's
going
going
on?
on.
Are you cheating on me? No, I'm a secret agent. Okay, bye. Like, how do you explain that? You know.
Now, yeah, I'm saying it's one of JJ Abrams' stronger outings to me.
It is,
But
but it still has some Abrams in him. Abram
sure, yeah.
People say the rabbit's foot is like a typical mystery box, but until this latest movie, I always thought it was very clear that it was just a biological weapon, and it doesn't have to be more than that. It's
No, yeah, I don't say yeah, there's nothing
some people have that criticism, but I'm like, it has the biohazard symbol on it. It's obviously just like a biological weapon,
pretty
which
in
is
your face,
also
I thought.
yeah, it is in your face, and like I've just read that online. I mean, and that's what's in two. You know, it's a biological weapon. It's you know whatever COVID. Yeah, dude, Tom Cruise stopped COVID 14 years early. Our hero, man.
I think it's Ghost Protocol that really steps up the elevation of quality to me.
Yeah, for sure. I
Brad
think it's widely agreed upon. And
Brad
Ghost
Bird kind of
Protocol is
gets
one of my
like they set up Simon Pegg in the last one and he helps, but like this one, it's like, okay, we've got the Luther, Simon, and Benji and Ethan combo. And now they're really like, we're going to think of some really clever set pieces. And I love the hallway scene with that mesh that replicates the end of the hallway. That was always fun. And then when he climbs the building, that probably still to this day is like the most nerve-wracking sequence for me in the franchise.
yeah. How do
Because
you deal
like
with heights?
I went and rewatched the behind the scenes, and Cruz is just like on the line, like swinging around on the outside of the building and stuff. I'm like, Jesus, dude, this guy needs. I don't know.
Therapy? He doesn't believe in therapy. He believes in getting his Phaeton levels low. There's a thing. I always wonder this with actors who do their own stunts, and now Cruz has defended it, and I think he's done a good job at defending it. Is like the difference is like than using a stuntman, because I've heard some actors argue like, well, if you use a stuntman, the whole process goes more smoothly. It's not about your ego. It's about making sure the production keeps going. But those actors are not Tom Cruise.
Yeah, if
There's
you've
certain
got
people
the
like
capabilities, then use them.
yeah, if you have the capability, like
It's a
the
special
fact that
case.
Jackie Chan does his own stunts is
Yeah,
like is appealing, and you do get the ability to like without doing any digital editing, um, have the actor face in the stunt at the same time versus you watch a lot of stunts in movies and obviously it's like I mean it's parodied in Hot Rod like the dance scenes in Footloose when it's clearly not Kevin
yeah.
Bacon. Like the guy and Kevin Bacon's in good shape in that movie, but then you get a professional dancer who's in like even better shape because dancing is actually incredibly masculine and like the amount of physical prowess you have to have, like it's really hard. Jean-Claude Van Damme has gone on record. He's like, dude, learning to dance like helped me with like fitness and martial arts because it's just like so intense dancing for hours a day. But no, you're able to do that, and you're able to got like the amount of advertising like Burj Khalifa playing in this one, Burj Khalifa you saw. Because that was the first one I saw in theaters. I remember thoroughly enjoying
Me
it.
too.
And it's still one of my favorites because like it's Brad Bird, so it's fun. And it's a directorial decision, and not one I necessarily disagree with. It's personal preference, but sometimes I think McQuarrie's films can get too self-serious, at times, or can use a little more levity. And I might be in the minority opinion on that.
I feel
Uh,
that way. I felt like there was a little too much humor in in some of his. So,
too
but
much humor in McQuarrie's,
yeah, and a few of them, yeah, sometimes. But
like
that's just
what?
me. But what I like in this one in is that it kind of starts that trend. No, I'm sure it's done it before, but like it really gives you this set piece that you're looking forward to, and it's like, okay, him climbing up the building enough would be so thrilling, but it's the fact that we're gonna make one of his gloves stop working, and now he has to deal with that and figure out a way. It's just like to
That's just good
escalate,
writing, man. Knowing how to
escalate the escalation. It's great.
raise the stakes, and also like the way it's intercut with.
Yeah,
So like there's this traditional sort of like social espionage action where and like the movie even like almost like everybody in the movie is like, how is this going to work? This is so convoluted, like in a good way, of like, we have to have like two fake meetings at the same time. They really get goofy with the gadgets in this one, which I'm fine with, of like, we're like changing the numbers on hotel rooms and stuff, stuff like that.
yeah.
Um, and because it's always been light sci-fi, like you've had like mask 3D printers, like long before that was a thing,
Supposedly, but like people, for some people, the masks seem too far-fetched, but I think that technology's been around for a while. We just really haven't seen it
how would
because
you
we're
know
not.
if they're wearing a mask? Have you seen Bad Grandpa? Okay, case in point. You seen Jackass?
I just remember some lady like wearing a mask, like in the CIA or something, and like there's footage of her taking it off in front of one of the presidents. It may have been Reagan even or something. And it's like, oh man, like this is the technology we're dealing with, and that's like 20, 30 years ago. So it never bothered me. The machine being like a laptop is kind of silly, but
It is well, and then there's stuff like it gets real crazy when they're. One of my favorite parts of Dead Reckoning Part One is finally people are just like grabbing faces to be like, "Is this a mask?" I'm like, "Yeah, you should have been." If I worked at
yeah.
the IMF, I'd be doing that like every meeting. Instead of shaking hands, I'd like pinch cheeks like an old grandma just to make sure that it's like actually people's faces because it gets to the point where like there's like 3 fake Tom Cruises in Mission Impossible too. Like they go crazy with it. Everybody's just trying to be Tom Cruise, um, without even getting into deep fakes, dude. But no, it's always had that. But the ability to like intercut and escalate in the Burj Khalifa scene, which apparently like he had had that shot in his mind, like he had just wanted to like free climb a skyscraper in a movie, like that's because he's just notoriously an adrenaline junkie anyway,
Yeah.
like a crazy perfectionist. Some of it, like he actually learned to fly a helicopter for Fallout, which that seems almost unnecessary for me. I'm like, dude, like, what do you like? That's like thousands of hours. I almost don't believe it. That might just
I
be.
don't care. It looks good in camera.
It
So
looks good in camera, you know. Some people are criticizing. I know you're not as big of a Top Gun Maverick fan as a lot of people, but the they're like, well, sometimes you can tell they're sitting in like the co-pilot seat, not the pilot seat. I'm like, dude, I'm not an Air Force pilot. I don't care. I don't notice that while I'm like in the movie, you know, like engrossed in. I'm not like fact checking that part of the movie that hard, you know.
yeah.
Also, like, I'm not expecting actors to actually fly F-16. Like, that's insane. Like, why would I? You know, the fact that they did that as practical as they did is impressive.
What is your favorite stunt in these movies?
That's a hard one. I don't know if I can answer that. The Halo jump is pretty great. And the Burj Khalifa is also pretty great.
Yeah,
That,
Burj
that
Khalifa might be it for me,
that
but
might be it for me. I mean, just the whole sequence, not even just the stunt. Um, because like the fact that they filmed it, all of that, the way it's like intercut also with like the social tension of them trying to fake their way through this like, you know, drop off or whatever. Um, and like the way it escalates to having like, oh, and now there's a sandstorm, you know, that sort of thing,
yeah,
which is a real thing. Dubai as a city is a testament to man's arrogance. There shouldn't be a city there. But that's pretty great. The Halo jump. One thing. It was actually a Kevin McCarthy interview. Um, the focus pooling on Halo jumping, keeping it in focus while you're a cameraman, having to also Halo jump and also keep those people in focus doing all those moves, which they had to take like a skydiving photographer, like not a movie guy. They had to take like a different guy and like train him in how to do that sort of, you know, cinematography. Is all very impressive, and just the tone of it is very impressive. It's early in the movie, so it really sets up the stakes of the movie. I don't know how necessary it is because they're Halo jumping to get onto like this club. I'm like, why couldn't they just go in the club? I don't know that part. If I think about it too much, I'm like, could they not like just get fake IDs like they're under 21 and just like go like, is that hey, we can Halo jump you, but we can't get a fake ID. That's too much for us guys. Like really, the guy over by the liquor store can get you a fake ID. Just get one from him, dude. Um, but there's the thing, because apparently in the McQuarrie ones, like a lot of times they start with the stunts, you know, in terms of like what they want to do, and then right around that, which I think starts to show, and like it doesn't collapse under the weight, but it does start to like shake and buckle the movies under the weight of that writing style, I think, and it really shows in this most recent one, which we'll get to.
sure. To me, most people prefer Fallout, but for me, I prefer Rogue Nation. That is like the most like balanced to me of a good sampling of everything for me that I want in a spy espionage thriller. It has the it has a great heist, my favorite heist, and a very original kind of heist.
Which heist?
It's where he has to go into that
Oh,
water.
the he has to swim in the thing.
Yeah, that's so terrifying, and also it's incredible that he taught himself to hold his breath for 6 minutes in real life so he could film underwater. And it's like, you might think it's far-fetched that he has to hold his breath for 3 minutes in the movie. Well, guess what, bitch? He did it for six. So, and that's just an insane idea of like, you have to get in there and switch these two things out while this thing's moving you around and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a great set piece, and it is something I know the Avatar 2 actors had to. They basically had to learn how to do that as well, and
Yeah.
like hold their breath for that long. You can train yourself to do it. Free divers do it, but it's insane because if you even try to hold your breath, even if you're not in bad shape, you try to hold your breath for a minute, you start feeling it. Let alone with all the exertion, which they talk about in the movie.
I like the focus on Ilsa in the movie and the dynamic of her wanting to help. She cares about Ethan, but also she's got her own motives, and it's this constant fighting back and forth in this kind of sexy spy kind of way. And it's got the car chase or the motorcycle sequence, and it's like lavish Casablanca and all this stuff. And then you do all this big stuff, and then I like how grounded the stuff with Lane is at the end. Like the finale is like Benji's tied up and strapped to a bomb and they're having to talk stuff out with Lane and stuff. It's just my kind of spy movie. Like it is the spy movie to me.
I know,
And
I understand what you're saying, and like hearing your version of it, I do agree. Like it is really balanced. I do prefer Fallout. I've heard more people say you're, like Rogue Nation, which I did not see in theaters, like I said. Um,
and I love the stuff with him having to fight back with the CIA trying to shut IMF down, and then the that's my favorite mask moment is when he reveals himself in front of Alec Baldwin in that room. It's like, yeah, guess what, bitch? It's me, Ethan
no, that
Hunt.
probably is the best mass reveal in the franchise. Even
Yeah,
like the camera work in it, it's like simple but effective of just like tracking in. It's like it's me, motherfucker. like, um, and the way it works for a plot of like getting dude to admit that he basically created the Rogue Nation, the what's it called,
yeah.
the IMF, the whatever. I don't know.
That one's like to me like the most spy feeling, and I feel like it kind of gets away from that a little bit later on, more saving the world.
It does. It definitely gets like if there's anything to be critical of the later ones, because the IMF, like, here's the thing. I had a coworker who saw it recently. He saw The Final Reckoning, having not seen any of the other movies, which is almost like walking into an Avengers movie blind. Like it's seriously almost that level at this point. And,
Yeah.
and and that's why the movie has so much goddamn exposition, because they knew a lot of people will not have seen Dead Reckoning. Um, but Dead Reckoning Part One, and the only one called Dead Reckoning.
Yeah.
um, but the I do explain what the IMF was, because
Oh
that's
wow.
so sidelined by that part of the movie, like by that part of the franchise. Like it's not even really brought up. It's just like we have to stop Armageddon. Um, so yeah, you're definitely getting out of the espionage by that, and in Fallout, you still have some of it in Fallout. You have your fake mask, your double crossing and stuff.
Fallout has some of the coolest like action, especially with having the villain be. I like the villain being what's his name?
Henry
Henry
Cavill,
Cavill,
great.
and just the annoyance of him trying to undermine the way Hunt does things. It adds to your hate for this guy. So when it finally reveals he is a villain, you're like, yeah, fuck this guy,
Yeah, it's
kill
very
him.
well done. And it's also very inspired. It's inspired casting, because like he's not normally cast as a villain. He does great at it. No, and like he was and is best known for Superman. Like he still was playing Superman at the time. So like it's nice. Like, hey, what if and like not in the lazy like injustice, like what if Superman was bad sort of way, like sort of. But they're like, oh, let's just cast a good guy. I don't know. It's almost like if you cast Tom Hanks as the villain, and something it'd be like, oh snap, reveal Tom Hanks is bad in this one.
Yeah, and I
He's
like
America's dad, but he's America's stepdad too.
I like the escalation idea of like Lane may have failed, but now there's these apostles with carrying out their own ideals and stuff. And I like that I love the Halo jump and like trying to find John Lark and the fight in the bathroom with Henry Cavill. It's brutal. And everyone knew it was iconic immediately when he reloads his fists. That's just, it's cool as fuck. And he's a big ass guy. I do feel like it depends a little bit on the last one, a little too much with Ilsa showing up and then some of the stuff with trying to trade Lark, and it gets a little in the middle. It sags for me just a little bit. Not bad. I think it's an incredible movie. I just think some of the stuff with White Widow gets a little messy.
I get what
Um,
you're saying, but I love so much that he has to like find a way of being the bad guy without revealing himself. In terms of espionage, like being that much of a double agent of like I'm going to have to pretend to be this guy, and
yeah,
then they're going to ask me to like. Are they asking him to kill Solomon Lane, but he's supposed to kidnap Solomon Lane? Is that the thing, or he's supposed to
yeah.
like he has to take him for
Well,
the
no,
IMF?
he needs Solomon Lane. Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. He's got to capture him alive, and he wants to kill him. He shouldn't have left him alive. But I do like that it opens with the the only dream sequence in the move in the franchise where he gets obliterated by an atomic blast. That kind of sets the feelings inside of Ethan's head immediately. Like, I fucked up. I shouldn't have left this guy alive. Why did I do this?
Because it's because then we'd be out of a villain. I don't know. It's the Batman problem of like, why do I don't kill? Well, you should. Also, you killed everyone else. I don't know. You've
Yeah,
killed plenty of people, Ethan.
yeah. And the helicopter stuff is spectacular. And I like that it was able to tie in Julia. She comes back and you see that she's remarried, and which of course, like, she didn't have to live in hiding and in fear. She shouldn't have to, but it kind of takes it to the next level of like, I can't believe this guy has brought back this aspect of my past, and now like I've tried so hard to protect the ones I love and all this stuff, and it just sets like, yeah, this place is about to blow up, but like
Insult to injury.
he's fighting his past and his, I don't know. It's just, it's a great aspect of the film,
Which has
and we
always
don't
been the
see
problem.
her
I
in it.
wonder if that's also like reflective of Tom Cruise being a workaholic and like him having input on like this my experiences with women and being a workaholic and too into my work like that and Scientology is why my marriages haven't worked out because apparently isn't like Katie Holmes is the only one who has like custody or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess I don't follow celebrity gossip that quickly, but I'm glad she was able to get out. Here's the thing. I think Fallout. Again, I said it earlier. I think his wife Julia gets more development and like more things to do in Fallout than she does in Mission Impossible 3, other than like she shoots the bad guy in Mission Impossible 3. But like it retroactively makes me like Mission Impossible 3 less because like it just shows, I don't know, I think it's just much better characterization. She has more stuff to do. That's just me. And it feels more earned versus like we're going to put a trope here to like make Ethan more sympathetic, you know, or to give him something. But granted, you couldn't have that without it being set up in Mission Impossible 3.
That's
So
true.
there's that.
But yeah, the actual like seeing him fly that helicopter is, I mean, it takes it up to the notch. All these stunts are better because he's actually doing them. I will say
100%.
that.
100%.
Yeah. And I was watching pretty much behind the scenes for all the stunts, and Simon Pegg, it's like a video of Simon Pegg and they're on that cliff in Dead Reckoning Part 1, or just Dead Reckoning, I guess. And he's
No, it's
like,
part one. It
we
says
go
that.
through this every fucking time, and I'm fucking fed up with it. And he's like holding his breath because he's about to do the motorcycle jump off the cliff, and like you can see it happening in the background, and everyone's just like holding their breath and shit. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, I'm sick and fucking tired of this. Jesus, dude.
Yeah, because that's like I'm sure at least professionally, like they're friends, you know.
Yeah.
If they weren't, Benji wouldn't be in all those movies, you know.
Yeah.
If they didn't get along, I'm sure Tom Cruise he's literally has executive
Oh,
power.
yeah. He's got the
He's
say.
like, if I don't like an actor, like he's not in the next movie, you know. But it's for those things. I don't know. It's like if you and I worked together and then you just like saw me like jumping off cliffs and stuff, you'd be like, Scott, Jesus Christ, just
Yeah,
stop.
dude. Now,
Jim from accounting keeps base jumping and it's make at work and it's making everybody nervous.
Dead Reckoning is my favorite, and I know people won't agree with me there.
I
That's
think you're
fine.
the only person I've heard say that, which I do agree that Dead Reckoning is like stronger, you know, than a lot of these other movies. I can give you my ranking now or later.
Well, it's just every aspect of it is, I don't know. It just takes everything up a notch to me. It doesn't have the biggest finale, but I like the finale the best because of the way it progresses on the train. We have all these different working parts that it doesn't feel bloated either, because it's like I'm genuinely interested to see uh Gracie be able to play White Widow, which is really cool to watch Vanessa Kirby play a version of herself that's not herself. I think that's really fun.
I always love it when actors have to act acting.
Yeah.
That's such a layered thing and so hard to pull off. Like, how do I look like I'm acting without looking like I'm acting? Like, I don't, I could never, you know.
We're letting Gracie, yeah, we're letting her do her thing, and then we're waiting for Ethan to join the party, and then it amps up a notch. And then Kitteridge is also on the train, and it just adds to it. And then you get the two CIA guys who are also trying to do their thing while Kitteridge isn't even supposed to be there. And then I like that one of the CIA guys is kind of questioning, like, well, Ethan's just trying to do the right thing, I think. And then a full blown joins the IMF in the next one. And I like that he did that because, like, over the course of Dead Reckoning, he's kind of questioning, like, why am I chasing after this guy?
No, and it does feel like, I mean, the advantage of it is a part one and part two, even if they should have just named it Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning.
It's
but
fun, but
but also,
it
I
feels
think
complete,
audiences
though.
would get mad if they're like, "Oh, it's a cliffhanger," brr, even though I don't think it's that much of a
It's
cliffhanger.
not. He gets the key. That's what they were looking for the whole movie, and they
Yeah,
get it, and they're good to go. Like, yeah, that's
I
me.
just think
That's a
it's like part one.
success.
It's not a cliffhanger; it's a part one. You're right.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but the that actor, and I don't remember his name, the like younger black guy, who's like is it, I'm not gonna look at who it
Yeah,
is,
the
but
CIA guy I was
yeah,
talking about.
yeah, yeah. No, he does a good job. It's really just like interesting, even like costuming work where you have your older, who has sort of like the weird, like pushed up hair, kind of CIA guy who,
Yeah.
and I also love the airport sequence is really fun where they're like deep faking everybody and then have to like, that's when they start like grabbing faces. And I'm like, fucking finally, dude. They're just,
Yeah. This is the level I like. Like, we're getting light sci-fi more than ever. Like, we're really going for it in this one, and I appreciate it.
well, I mean, with the entity, the
That's what
villain
I'm
is an
saying. It's
AI.
like I was kind of waiting for that kind of escalation, and as
Well,
someone
we
who,
we and especially you love escalation. You love that.
yeah, but it's also like I'm very drawn to that kind of theme of as technology is getting scarily advanced. It's like what are we going to be able to differentiate? And now with in this post, you know, original Trump presidency with facts, alternative facts and
Yeah.
pushing all this.
Now we have Trump 2 plus generative AI.
Yeah.
We
So
we have
now
the
it's like,
White House posting Studio Ghibli AI memes.
yeah, we call it sci-fi in this movie, but how far away are we?
Well, it's a
And
really interesting thing is like even in the few years between, I mean, even between 2023 and 2025, like these between these two movies,
yeah,
like Chat GPT and all these other things, Grok and Gemini and all the other
open AI, yeah.
flop, it exploded, you know. So already it's like I wonder, I mean, the script had to be already like mostly finalized, but like it already feels like not outdated, but it's really interesting to see like how much more prescient or how much more relevant it is to things.
To have your villain something you can't even like grasp with your hands because it's not physical. It's all encompassing. It leads to a very I love the middle of the movie when they're at the club, and yeah, it's kind of like a little corny to show it like on the screens and stuff like this is the entity, but I like it because we need a visual
Yeah, it's a
cue
movie.
there. That's fine with me. Also, it's like, yeah, this thing is constantly listening in. It knows everything, and it's foreseen everything, and they're treating it like almost like a religious aspect.
Well, in the final reckoning, they call back, and this is a retcon that I think is completely unnecessary and adds to the bloat of the final reckoning. A movie that I enjoyed because the highs are very high, but also there's a lot of bloat. Like that movie could have been cut down 20 minutes, and I don't
Yeah.
always say that, but like it could have been way short. Um, but it's retconned where that the biological weapon, the rabbit's foot, in Mission Impossible 3 was actually like a prototype of the entity or something,
Yeah.
Um, and originally, Benji had called the sort of like biological weapon that apparently it's implied that it like rewrites genetic code to the point of degradation. He calls it an anti-god. He uses the phrase anti-god again in reference to the entity. Basically, yeah, it is like an omnipresent satanic evil presence, like all-knowing, omnipresent. It's because what the closest thing we have to God on earth is Google.
Uh, and I like the idea of like is having to really think outside the box in this one. He's really having to think, well, what would the algorithm expect me to do that I need to do outside of that, and to try and switch it up a little bit. And he almost sounds, when he's listening to Gabriel talk about it at the club, he calls him a fanatic, and it really escalates the tension and the paranoia surrounding the entity. And it feels almost like a postmodern, like 70s paranoia kind of thriller espionage kind of
Well,
thing.
it is. I mean, it's that sort of Cold War paranoia, but escalated
Yeah.
to the 21st century, where it's all information warfare, which is espionage. Because like even though it's less like traditional espionage, like the thing is, a lot of I think espionage nowadays it is in cyberspace and it is information warfare and fucking bot farms and trolls influencing elections and controlling
Yeah.
governments. And so, but that's not cinematic. So we have to have Tom Cruise hanging off a plane fighting AI. Like we have to find a way to do it. That's
But it's
not.
the stuff I read between the lines, the implications of what the entity might be capable of. That is like the scariest villain because of that to me. And like exemplified when Cruz or Hunt is running and he's trying to get directions from Benji, but it's not Benji at all. It's a deep fake. That is terrifying. And it's we're already there. We're already dealing with that level of deception.
Yeah, like phishing scams for old ladies where they pretend like I'm your grandson, I need money using like deep fake voices, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Only, way worse. There's bombs involved. Um, no. I mean, and it's so weird, but like I'm glad a big movie, one of the biggest movies of the year, is like talking about these things. And it's sort of like right place, right time. Because I think even when Dead Reckoning came out, it wasn't as big of a concern a couple of years ago as it is now. But like, yeah, I mean, it was a concern. Like, we had already had like Cambridge Analytica and like all these other things come out. But like, I think it's good to like bring it to moviegoers' attention of like deep faking information because at the beginning of Dead Reckoning, it's like video manipulation. There's like AI voice, like clearly like AI faces, like deep fake faces, like talking, like espousing weird political opinions. And it's like that's something that's only gonna get worse, dude. Like I dread the next presidential election.
Yeah. And like that sequence at the beginning at the airport, it's like the entity is able to delete Gabriel out of the security footage in real time. That's fucked up. He's like an actual ghost.
Well, and it's also one of those things like I've always thought it interesting whenever I watch a spy or any sort of movie with any sort of technology. You watch like Enemy of the State with Will Smith. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but it's all
Uh,
about surveillance and like they can use satellites to like see where you are and stuff. And it's like, dude, like military grade applications, like GPS exists because of the military. The internet exists because of the military, of the American military. So like seeing these things in movies and like wondering like how far off it is from reality and like stuff the military has that is not like consumer level yet, it really makes you think, which is what makes it so thrilling is that like possibility of how, because I'm sure like if somebody in the military wanted to make a technology that could like in real time delete you from surveillance footage, like at this point I'm sure we have the technology, like
yeah,
we,
there might be artifacts there, but like it could still do it, I bet.
yeah,
Yeah,
like you
easily.
could
Well,
figure it out.
considering it came out that you could see blueprints of them trying to develop VR technology in the 50s, like an old, like primitive version of VR.
No,
It's
I
like,
didn't
what?
know that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
creepy.
of course.
But yeah, and it's also like the powerlessness that Ethan feels more so in Dead Reckoning than any other one because like Gabriel says the entity is going because of what it has foreseen. Either Gracie's going to die or Ilsa, and it'll be pretty much on Hunt's hands, and he thinks that he's going to be able to have a way to think out of it or think himself out of the situation. But unfortunately, Ilsa does die, and like that is an actual blow to me because I really like that character. That's the first time in the franchise that I actually felt like real sorrow. I was like, damn.
No, it really sucks, and it's partially, I was just looking at it. Rebecca Ferguson said part of it is she kind of liked her person being a loner. She didn't know where her character wanted to go. Also, it's just like the time commitment for Mission Impossible films and so many months
Sure.
of filming. Um, it's sad losing her, but without that, we wouldn't have got her in Dune. Sounds like so. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Is Lady
And
Jessica?
I like that they bring back White Widow in that one too.
Yeah, she is. She is kind of absent from Final Reckoning. I
Because
was kind of
she's
weird.
someone, yeah, she's not in that one. Yeah, but there's no place for her. Where would she be?
Yeah, that's the thing. That movie's already bloated. I thought she would at least get a nod, but I understand.
That's the weird thing about the structure of Final Reckoning. It's unlike any of the other films. It's like this big build up to their final mission. And it's not really a spy espionage. Like, yeah, he has to lift that thing out of the submarine, but it's not like a traditional kind of spy movie at all. It's more of like just a,
It's like a war drama. I mean it's like
yeah,
it's there to the point where like a huge chunk of the movie is I think former CIA director Angela Bassett like in the war room, like we're watching like Air Force One or something
yeah.
when they're like having to debate what to do with the situation. Like it really
You
goes.
kind of have to get used to this new kind of film in a way. It's slower moving.
It
Yes,
is slower moving.
it should have been cut down by 25 minutes, but it still works and it's still a thrilling lead up to the submarine stuff. And but it is like even when you get to that set piece, even that is plays out differently from any other heists scene in any of the other films.
No, because he's alone and
Yeah.
it's just him against the elements. So
Yeah.
it's just him struggling. It's like an episode of Survivor Man or something, but really intense of just struggling to make it through a situation. So also that friend who had never seen any of the others. So he said he was watching it with his girlfriend and he's turned to her at one point. He's like, man, I'm really liking this movie. So he has thalassophobia. He has like fear of like
Oh
underwater
no.
stuff. And then he said that happened. He turned to his girlfriend. He's like, I don't like this movie anymore. This is fucking like he said it like really fucked with him, which is it's a rational fear drowning underwater. Like that happens to like thousands of people every year. So like as far as the ocean's fucking
Yeah.
scary.
And then I watched let me see here. The behind the scenes of that, and he said, yeah, Cruz said that the suit he wears in that scene underwater was 120 pounds and that he could only wear it for 10 minutes before getting hypoxia. So that's brutal in and of itself. And in typical fashion, in Mission Impossible fashion, it's like, okay, the sub, of course, it starts to get dislodged and it starts turning and rolling. I love the way the water it stays on the water's perspective as it's turning and he's stuck in that room dealing with the gravity shifts. I love that part.
Now I enjoyed that more than the plane sequence, just because the plane sequence was so heavily advertised. I kind of knew what
No,
to
I
expect.
get that.
Although it was very thrilling, it was still, and I'm also like, God, shooting this
But
half the budget.
I watched behind the scenes on that and when you realize how hard it was for him to do that plane scene, it makes it that much more spectacular, maybe retroactively. But I mean, he said like imagine that much force on your body all at once for that long period of time. Like he Cruz was saying basically like he could barely get it done. Like he said it took his mind to an entirely different place. Like he said that he would pass out at times like doze off on the plane because he had to recharge his own body because it was that hard on him. He said it was like lifting your own weight constantly throughout the whole thing, and like he could barely even hang on.
Yeah,
And
it's like astronaut training or something.
it was the way he described it was brutal. I recommend everyone go look that up because him like passing out just so he could recharge his body enough to do another take is fucked up.
Dude, it's something. I don't know. I feel like it's all gonna catch up with him, and he's just gonna like. I mean, he's like 60 now, which is insane. So when he's 70, he's gonna be in a wheelchair. Like it's for some reason, it's all gonna like stack up and like come back to him all at once. Maybe not, or maybe his Scientology is real. I don't know.
I've only seen Dead Reckoning once, or Final Reckoning, sorry. So I wonder how it would be on rewatch. But like that first hour, I was like surprised that like, yeah, we're still building towards the start of the mission. We got to get everything in order. Here's the entity. Here's uh remember this, and why are we connecting it to the past Mission Impossibles? I didn't think that was really necessary.
No, I do like that. What's his name from the first movie? Who was in the whole like high CIA?
Yeah, the first and only Glup Shido for the Mission Impossible franchise.
Yeah, William Donlow, the glove shooter. I liked him in this movie.
I liked him in the movie, but we didn't need the whole, oh, here, remember this knife from the
Oh yeah, that
first
was
movie?
unnecessary. I don't. I still kind of
That reeked to me of like shit Star Wars would do. I
No,
was
it
kind of
really is.
surprised by
We're
that.
full on franchise filmmaking. We're gonna get a legacy sequel. This is the final reckoning for Ethan Hunt, maybe. But there, if this movie does well, they're gonna have him in like a mentor role or like something where he's 70.
I just hate that like there's with some people a narrative that like, oh, Dead Reckoning was kind of like a dark spot or something in the franchise, which I think is absurd because I saw Macquarie on a podcast and the guy on the podcast was bringing that up like, did you take into account what people had to say about that one? I'm like, what are people bitching about with this movie that bad? But Macquarie seemed to like, first of all, he said in this interview that he hates exposition. Now, don't fucking lie to my face, dog.
I wonder. Here's the thing. I I wonder with a lot of the exposition if, and this is the problem with doing a two-part movie, obviously, especially in this day and age where there's so much information and entertainment, is like Barbenheimer really hurt that movie, both the box office because it took over IMAX screens, and then also just like people don't see, you and I will see 3 movies in a month. Most people won't see 2 movies in a month.
Yes.
Barbenheimer was an exception, and which is really interesting because like this shows out how out of touch a lot of theater executives are. Now they're referring to any time like Lilo and Stitch and
Oh
this.
yeah.
They're referring to it as like a Barbenheimer event. I'm like, that was a special, like naturally mimetic thing. You're
Yes.
trying to force it.
Yep.
The different demographic, like the demographics don't overlap enough. It's ridiculous because we were the youngest people in our theater when we saw it, which was surprising. Like there's,
Yeah, that was strange. By
it was-
like at least 15 years.
yeah, it was like boomers and Gen X, like Gen X at the youngest,
Yeah.
and we saw it like on a opening
But the
weekend.
thing is, in that interview, he even brings up Barbenheimer, and he said we did not take the Barbenheimer into account when looking at what we needed to adjust for the next one. I was like, bullshit.
No,
'Cause, like, he was saying-
I'm sure they added exposition. I'm
He said,
sure.
"Oh yeah," he says that they work for the fans at this point. I'm like, you shouldn't be saying this. You shouldn't have adjusted just because not as many people went to see it. I looked at Amazon Prime the other day, and the top in the United States was Dead Reckoning.
Exactly.
So people were getting ready. You should have trusted them to be like it. He's like, well, we just
Also,
wanted to make sure.
It's not that there's exposition one time. It's they have to keep repeating things. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
and he kept saying like, "Well, we wanted to make it a standalone movie." In what way? Even with all this exposition, like this is not really a standalone movie. Accept it. Like
But also just what do you have to say? Evil robot, HAL 10,000.
people can understand the concept of the entire world is being hacked and is going to be nuked. It's not that complicated.
It's really not. Like you're making it seem more complicated, almost for like in an attempt to make it like a really grave and serious tone, which which I mean, it kind of has to be for this last one, I guess. But like, it to the point where it's like you don't need to hammer all this home, and you don't need to like tie in all these other things that just like confuses the audience more even at this point. But also I think it's also like Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie love this franchise and love these characters, and like for their own sake wanted to make a love letter like to themselves and for themselves, you
And
know.
I get that. It does suffer a little bit because of its change of structure. Also, like it sets up kind of in Dead Reckoning, like, okay, so now Cruz just has to figure out where the uh submarine is, and so he can get there. And it's like, well, what else would there be to add to this movie? And so instead of coming up with something that could be an entirely different first act, that could be more in line with the espionage, the thrilling, I don't know, aspect of these movies. Instead, it's like yeah, they have the part where Luther has to do the bomb, but that's really just like a saying goodbye to that character. Instead, it's like we're gonna have an hour of like war room back and forths, just trying to get Ethan allowed to go find this submarine, basically. And it kind of I feel like there could have been a cleaner way to build this up. So, uh, but once we get to the Arctic, it does pick up a lot. And I do like that Benji is in charge now because uh, Hunt's got to do his own thing. So,
Yeah, because I do feel like Hunt's almost on his own for like most of this, you know,
yeah.
which is I think thematically like he's such a loner. By the way, I forgot to mention, speaking of dead wives or like wives and lazy writing, there's this whole thing where you know Isai Morales or whatever his name is, Gabriel, who's that's an angel's name by the way, just to make it more like religious overtone, but archangel. But the the idea there's this flashback in Dead Reckoning of this. I don't even think she's ever named like some apparent love interest of his. Like Gabriel had killed her, you know, and so they have a past that is never elaborated upon, and that plot line is completely dropped for this movie.
Yeah, there should have been more with that. And in that interview I saw, Macquarie said they shot an entire thing involving that and they just didn't use it. And they figured, people get it. That's enough. But I don't think that isn't, I don't know.
It was never necessary in the first place.
Yeah. Well, they wanted some connection between him and Gabriel. I get that. But I don't know. I don't know if it has to be expanded on that much, but I do feel like, yeah, I don't know. At least they make the dynamic of the war room with the president pretty interesting, and she does have a soul inside of her. Like trust Ethan one last time, and like I do like that she's the one to decide, kind of I guess like the boat scene in The Dark Knight, but you know.
Oh yeah.
Uh
Well, no, it's just you got to decide those sort of things, which is it's crazy thinking of
I
any.
like that it because it's there, but I'm also wondering like does this take away from what we love about Mission Impossible a little bit of doing this kind of a film? Because I don't know, it was supposed to be a part one and part two. I don't know. I feel like I could have handled a 3.5 hour long Dead Reckoning where it's like, okay, we get the key from the train and now we're going to the submarine and have the final hurrah. And then it would have been much leaner, much cleaner. But I
Yeah,
still enjoyed what we got.
it's almost like the movie has two acts, but there's one and but they also add an additional act of exposition, which is
Yeah.
you know, but that's what it
But
is.
yeah.
But the highs outride the lows. It makes it worth it. Sticks the landing, as I said.
Definitely sticks the landing. Literally, I thought he was gonna die. I thought they were gonna do a James Bond thing, but
Which is also it's one of those like, it could go either way. It could be contrived if he dies. It could be contrived if he lives.
yeah, it's kind of like, what do you do there?
What do
But
you,
I feel like they could have had a little bit more of a finality to the ending. of like, I don't know.
It's not.
Yeah, I get it. He's gonna be back in the game probably. He nods to all of his teammates, but like I don't know, maybe they could have
So
just done
he walks off with the super AI. So what's he gonna do? Is he just gonna use it to like make memes and influence elections? Like what?
yeah, they trust him to be the one person in charge of it. I don't know if the government knows about that, but
But the whole thing is that the whole movie, he's like, I don't think anybody should be in charge of this. It needs to be destroyed, and then he doesn't destroy it, which I guess is like, well, what's he doing with this thing? With it, don't they call it like a 5-dimensional USB drive or some bullshit?
I don't know.
Dude, that doesn't make any fucking sense. It's
But
stupid.
it's the point that Gracie thinks that she would choose him and he is worthy to be in charge of something because she's seen his actions over the years, I guess. I don't know. Or over the last 2 months. I keep forgetting it's only
Yeah.
like. Well, also, that's weird that in Dead Reckoning, the message at the beginning for the IMF, it says 30 years ago you joined the IMF, and then at the beginning of this one it says for the past 35 years, but then later in the movie it says 2 months ago when Gabriel disappeared. And I'm like, well, what? Oh well, fuck it.
That's not that important. I didn't notice that, but that's funny though.
So I'm like, I don't think Ethan's 67 in this movie, but okay.
Yeah, I do have to. I do like wonder about the current like the timeline. Like maybe he's actually like however old. Let's just say for sake of argument, he was like 28 in when he was an actor in um the first Mission Impossible.
Sure.
He was like yeah, he was like 34, I think actually. He was in his 30s, but the let's just say he was like in his 20s in that movie. He was a bit younger. He looks
Yeah.
young. He's Tom Cruise. He looks young.
Yeah.
So for maybe I in my head he's like 50 in this movie, about.
But this is the most he's gone like in his underwear
No,
easily.
he wanted to flex. Literally wanted to flex. He wanted to like make me as a 30-year-old feel bad about my body as someone half his age.
Yeah. And he's saying he's going to make movies till he's 100. He's never going to stop. So
Well,
let's
here's the
hope
thing.
he.
He's done from his earlier role. Like I know he's known for like these big action roles now, but like he didn't always start like that. So
I know. Yeah.
he has enough range to where like if he wants to go back and do like romantic comedies or something, like he
I
can
don't
do
think
it.
so. Macquarie just said he's cracked the story for Top Gun 3. I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. And that one, at least, he's more flying planes than he is like hanging off of them.
I'd much rather watch him do cool spy shit than fly planes around.
Yeah,
That's just
well,
me.
that movie made $1 billion, so
Yeah, well, yeah, it made $1 billion because it's remember the 80s?
it is. It is. Remember the Cold War, except it's not the Cold War, and these villains are just the bad guys because we don't want any sort of geopolitical implications.
That pissed me off more than I think people realize. Like that's so toothless to me. Just
It is very
in a
toothless.
lame way. Just like, come on, man.
It's at that point just make it like the bad guy, the Empire, the orcs. Like it's that level, which is fine if you're doing like fantasy, but like I don't know. It did take me. It was my biggest problem with the movie, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm keener on that movie than you are. I only saw it once. I will say, to the movie's credit, one time a guy on a plane was watching it, and I, across the aisle with no sound on one of those seats on the plane, was still watching the movie. I'm like, well, they're doing something right. That
Sure,
they're
it's an
catching my
entertaining flick. Yeah.
like if they're catching my attention in like the worst way to watch this movie outside of maybe on your phone. Like
I just prefer Tron Legacy. That's okay though. That's me.
as far as what 80s nostalgia.
No, as the same director.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you love that movie. I don't know. Well, we'll see if Tron Ares is any good.
I'm begging them to re-release Tron Legacy in IMAX 3D. Please do that because it's definitely style over substance. And I hate when people say, "Well, no, it's always style is the substance." No, not always.
Not always. You know, form
But
informs
it is a
content and vice
spectacle.
versa.
But I bet Macquarie would probably sign on to direct it, the third Top Gun himself, because he produced and wrote, I think, second Top Gun, and he also produced and wrote, I think, Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. He and Tom Cruise just I don't know, they get along.
Yeah. I wonder if like Macquarie is like, is he Scientology pilled or
I don't know.
I don't know. Doesn't matter. But they did kill off our boy Luther, which I called before the movie.
He
I just
did.
knew in my heart, deep down, thematically, they were going to do that.
He's the only other one who's been in all of them.
Yeah. So, but overall positive. I enjoyed the last one. I do wish it was a little bit restructured. I feel like most people could agree there. But hey, it's a hell of a franchise. And yeah, I guess that's all I have really to say on Mission Impossible.
Dun, 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 dun.
And demonetized. Thanks, Scott.
All right. Well, I tried.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Next week we're starting a our Kino summer series where we do summer themed movies. Where this year we're doing a mix of movies that have like summer atmosphere, but also movies that people went out during the summer to watch in a cold theater with the AC and their ices. So we'll be covering a couple of things. First, we're going to start out with Romere's A Summer's Tale. So look forward to that next week. Other than that, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Watch our other episodes, share them if you like them. You know, all that stuff. We got to grow our audience a little bit here. So thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.